Welcome to the Jazz Flyte Podcast. I'm your host, Darrell Scott, and together we will dive into the lives and careers of the jazz legends who have left a rhythmic imprint on the world. Be prepared to reminisce on the highs and the lows of their musical journey and the trials that sculpted their timeless musical gems. We'll preserve the legacy of these extraordinary maestros and find inspiration in the melodies of their lives. Subscribe now and never miss a beat. Now, let's get to the show. Greetings, everyone. I'm Darrell Scott. You're about to listen to the Jazz Flyte Podcast. I'll say this in the beginning. I'll say it again at the end. If you like what we do, if you like the artists that we interview, if there are artists that you think we should get, email me at jazzflyte@gmail.com. But subscribe. This way you can get all 119 episodes of what we've done. And we've had some quality guests. We have another quality guest here. And I don't know why I look over there. There's nothing over there, but I just do little oddball things. So, ladies and gentlemen, here's our guest today, who actually has worked with Greg Manning, friend of the show, Huge Groove, has an interesting story, and Jeff Carruthers. This is Mo Lewis. Mo, how are you today?
Hey guys, I'm great. Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
I greatly appreciate this. Let's start this off with your beginnings. How
Sure.
did your sax life begin?
It started off in elementary school, actually. Well, actually, it's before that. I mean, for me personally, I owe a lot of my start and my musical inspiration to my parents. My parents growing up were huge jazz fans, and in particular, they were smooth jazz fans. So all growing up, I mean, our house was, Grover Washington Jr., Tom Scott, David Sanborn, anyone, George Benson, anyone you can imagine, even at the beginning of smooth jazz, when everything was on the CTI record label and things like that. So that music has been around my life, forever. And growing up, I played sports. And in fourth grade, when they came to the school, in a public school system, and they showed you all the instruments, and they said, "Hey, we're going to sign up for band." Man, I was bit by the bug, and at the time I didn't know why. I mean, I should have known that, hey, my parents play, I wanted to listen to pop music as a kid, but jazz was always around me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was bit, so I wanted to play and be involved so bad that I came home and I told my parents that I wanted to play the flute. And the reason why I told them that is because it was the least expensive instrument to rent. So I
Right.
felt like my path of least resistance was going to be to go with the cheapest. And they kind of looked at me and smirked, and they go, "No problem, son. If you want to play the flute, that's fine." But they said, "That doesn't really seem like you. So, like, I mean, we're thrilled you want to do music,
Right.
but is that what you really want to play?" And I said, "Nope, that's not what I really want to play." And from the moment that I first saw the saxophone, I fell in love with it. And it was gorgeous. I just thought it was so cool. I couldn't. And I told my parents, "Nope, I want to play the saxophone." And they were thrilled. They were like, "What? Sounds like music to our ears." They were so
Mm-hmm.
ecstatic about it. They went and got me, they went and rented me my first saxophone. That was the beginning of mini saxophones. But yeah, I mean, they were thrilled about it. And that's how it started, man, was just through the public school system.
Nice. You mentioned Grover Washington Jr. and David Sanborn. What was it about their sound or about them that made you really kind of dive into the saxophone?
I think in general, I've I've r- at a young age, have really felt connected to R&B music. I've loved soul music in general, and when I say R&B and soul, I mean that has such a wide span of genres.
Right.
It could be blues with a lot of soul in it. It could be Santana. It could be rock. It could be neo soul. It could be growing up, I listened more like a lot of kids, pop music. So
Hmm.
R&B and popular radio stations and popular music, but I've always had a very fine appreciation for the way soul singers have played their melodies or have sang their songs. And so I guess for me, even in my college and all my studies that I've done, even though a lot of it's been through jazz studies, like I've really, really resonated with vocalists.
Hmm.
And so I think, why I love the two that you, as you gave an example, Grover Washington Jr. and David Sanborn, is because, I really feel they play their instrument, you know, like a human voice. And
Hmm.
so that's why it's connected with me. Um, and they're just so uniquely different, but yet so equally incredible, you know?
Yeah, it's funny that you say that. I find it unusual that people like those two particular artists, but I go, but there's two totally different sounds.
Yeah.
Um, and sometimes it's hard to pick out, but I know that I can name a Grover tune. I go back to the game, name that tune. I can probably name a Grover tune in two notes. I can probably name a Sanborn tune in two notes. And it's
Yeah.
just that, like David kind of had that throaty, and I always go, can you turn your head straight when you play? Because it was always
Yeah.
kind of off to the side. But that was him, and he
Yeah.
was very good. Um,
No, it's interesting the postures that people take in order to obtain their sound. It's very unique and it's very personal and it's part of the anomaly of kind of how they sound like they do. But yeah, I mean, Sanborn in particular, when he tells a story, I personally can really relate to, when he starts playing raspy or throaty, when he
mhm.
does, it almost sounds like, to me, it almost sounds like sometimes you'd think he's playing a tenor sax. He's, playing so big on that instrument. And he's really, so emotional and I think all music in general, we have certain chords within us or certain, our nervous system. When music is played and it evokes this emotion that you can feel, and it's when it really takes us and inspires us. And so for me as a musician, maybe that was just the way God made me and something that is extra sensitive. But when an artist like Grover or David Sanborn plays, it inspires. It makes me want to pick up an instrument and play. That's what it did.
I bet you're one of those guys that's got a bunch of music sitting around the house, and if you play one song, you think of another, then you go to that song, and the next thing you know, your carpeting or your floor is covered with album covers and CD covers because it just one song stimulates another. Could that be true?
I mean, definitely, obviously, music and the way you listen to music has evolved, a lot throughout the years. So I actually don't have any records or albums anymore, but there was catalogs of, for me, it was CDs. Well, it started with tapes and then it went to CDs. And it always evolved, it always evolved for different styles of music. Um, and then because smooth jazz was around growing up, I was always stealing. My father, what you're saying is completely true. So growing up, he would go to record stores and there was some places that would sell used CDs, and he would
Hmm.
buy probably 5 or 6 new CDs a week. And so our house was always overly consumed with music to where it was just way too much. But these days, I do really appreciate the digital platforms for the way that they curate music, right?
Hmm.
So when you put on one song, how they start playing other artists that are similar,
Right, right.
or if I'm in the mood for an R&B. So it's kind of like having the floor full of records, but without having to have the record. So I appreciate that. And, I say for me, I get in different moods and want to hear different things. And when I want to hear a certain style of music and I put it on, it typically makes me want to pick up the saxophone and play. So, there's a lot of players out there. There was a time in my life when, I practiced um a lot of, more rudimentary style techniques and things like that. And not that I don't practice those now, but now instead of like putting a metronome on, which is
Hmm.
basically a digital timekeeper, click, 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 I just put on music. So anything that I'm going to practice, whether it be licks, feelings, improvisation, or technique, my metronome is other music in the background, right? And so I'll attempt to play that with the other music, basically.
I just want to now cut your head open and watch your brain while this process is going on because it seems so. everybody's got a different way of doing things. And as I talk to
Sure.
musicians, it's just so wild to listen to how you get from point A to point B. And for you, don't get me wrong, you made me feel old. I don't have any CDs. Dude, I got records in front of me. Talked to a guy the other night. He said he's got albums in 45s and 78s. I go, you're really old.
Yeah, yeah.
I am not quite that old just yet. Um, what? So you have this story where you're in a store and you're gonna buy a huge groove saxophone. First of all, why did you want to buy a huge groove saxophone? And then
Sure.
secondly, you met him, and what has that relationship been like?
Yeah, so the way the story actually goes, I wasn't in a store. I was actually in I was in Huge's house.
Oh,
And uh I have a good friend of mine that so side note, I'm also very, very involved in the saxophone business in musical instruments. Okay. And so um when I went to school for music, you know, I went to school because I was going to become Kenny G. That was,
hmm
or I was going to become Grover, and I was going to
hmm
become famous, and that's what I was going to do. Little did I know that, it's so hard to, make a valiant living as an artist. It's not that easy,
right.
and what it takes. And so when I was in college, um, I don't know, man. I've always been a businessman and I've always been a wheeler and dealer since a very young age. And I started getting real, obsessed about like a lot of sax players do, about what our heroes played, what kind of saxophone did they play, what kind of mouthpiece did they play. And growing up, my dad did a lot of wheeling and dealing through used instruments, and he used to buy. He's a guitar player and collector, and he used to take me on all of his treasure hunts. And we'd get the recycler and the penny saver, and he'd show me deals. He'd highlight things. We'd call him. We'd go see the deals. He's coaching me on the way there. This is what you do inside the house. This is
Right.
what you don't do.
hmm
You can't act very interested. We got to get a better deal. And so it kind of that really fascinated me, and I kind of got bit with this bug. Obviously, the way instruments are found, purchased, bought, deals are made, or everything evolves, right?
Right.
It's not the same as the penny saver or the recycler, antique, magazines anymore. But nonetheless, it's still the same thing. And I started buying and selling saxophones, and so I've been doing that for about 20 years myself.
All right.
And it started out. Here and there. And I was really fortunate. I met somebody that had a huge collection of saxophones that was getting towards the latter part of his life. And he wanted me to sell some saxophones for him. So I did. And then I had kind of sold everything I could sell for him, but he still had a boatload more. And I hadn't heard from him about a year. And I got a call from one of his sister, and she said, he had passed away. And he gave me your number, that when you're ready to clean the house up and get, like, he's a person to go to sell them. So she asked me to come pick up all these instruments, and I came and picked them up, and then just paid her like a fair amount every time I would sell one, basically to clear the house, because they needed to sell it. But that's how I basically got a good sum of money to actually get in the business full time. And
hmm
then so we have, sorry, I'm making kind of a short story a little bit long, but I have another friend that's in the sax business, and he actually makes mouthpieces. Huge Groove wrote to him, and Huge Groove is very much a gearhead, like we all are in the instruments and sax and mouthpieces. And so my buddy, we both love Huge Groove. We're smooth jazz musicians. Huge is one of my favorite all-time smooth jazz artists. And he became really good friends with him and kind of buddy buddy with him, and he started designing a mouthpiece for him. And you just kind of a big deal. He's kind of famous, and so he wasn't just going to say, hey, I have another buddy, I want you to meet him, you'll love him. And so our idea was, he says, he approached my buddy Matt. He goes, hey, I have the saxophone I want to sell, would you be interested? And he goes, well, I'm pretty, I don't have any need for it, but one of my good buddies sells saxophones. I bet you he'd be interested. So my friend Matt said, okay, Huge has a saxophone. If you're interested in buying it, go over there. You can meet him, and then maybe you can get to know him too.
Right.
Because we both had aspirations of being in recording artists. And so, we were recording demos and things like that for a lot of the very high-end saxophone clients and also very famous saxophone clients. So we were getting our demos out there and people were hearing us and people were
Hmm.
saying, "Man, you guys sound great." But I had no idea what it would take. Like, how do you put out a song? What do you do with the song? Who
Right.
produces the song? Where do you get the beat? Who writes the song? All these things. And then so I went and bought a saxophone from Huge Groove. I was in his studio. I remember him putting on one of his tracks called Sneak a Peek, and
Mm.
he's having me play the sax with his song. And I knew it mostly, but not completely. And man, talk about a nervous moment in my life. You know, I was about to faint. I'm like, dude, you're putting on your music in your studio. And anyways, he was very encouraging and flattering about my playing. I have this thing when I'm around other successful musicians, and I think we all have a little bit of our own personal insecurities, and so I was nervous as heck, to say the least. And he was very complimentary, and we became friends from that day. And I told him when I left that I had aspirations to release my own music, and
Hmm.
he was like, "Well, I'm pretty busy with I got to get out this album now, and I'm pretty busy." And we became friends. We kept chatting a couple of days, and he goes, "Hey, you know what? If you wanted to release something, do you have any idea what you'd want to do?" Because he's like, I don't really have time to, write a whole new track for you or whatever. And I
Right.
told him, I said I'd be willing to do a cover, and we can segue into that part if it's not throwing you too much of a loop. And so I said, yeah, I'd like to do Georgie Porgy, and he goes, "All right, if you want to do that, let's go." So believe it or not, Georgie Porgy, which I know is something you wanted to talk about, was actually the first song that I ever recorded. It was
Nice.
that song.
Speaking
Yeah.
of that, let's take a moment and listen to Georgie Porgy on the Jazz Flight Podcast with our guest Mo Lewis. That is Georgie Porgy by Mo Lewis on the Jazz Flight Podcast with this guy, Darrell Scott. Uh, how did you how did you pick Georgie Porgy? I've always had that question when I hear covers, and I got shut down one time by George Howard, but it was in true respect. How do you pick the cover? And then what is it about it that I don't want to say you want to change, but what becomes your interpretation?
Yeah. So, I mean, I wish I could give you some big philosophical answer as to how I do it. But, I mean, even as a musician, I would say that first and foremost, I'm a fan of music. I'm a fan of great music. So,
Mhm.
part of the inspiration of why I even want to make music is because of all the great music that's already out there, right? And I believe it's history, it's evolution, it's passed down to us, right? But I would say that I mean, it's as simple as if I hear well, first of all, if I hear a song and it really resonates with me, um which I've heard, Georgie Porgy throughout the years, but I never really looked at it like it could be a smooth jazz song. It's just a song that I've heard throughout the years. And I don't know, man. I just felt it, and then when I started playing with it, I felt like I was really able to put myself into the song.
Hmm.
And we all have our own style as to how we play music. And when I started interpreting it and putting my own style, I thought I had something to add to the legacy of that song, basically.
Hmm.
So that's pretty much how it goes. I mean, if you're gonna do a cover, you don't want to do the cover exactly like the original artist, and you
Right.
have to bring something new and refresh to the song. And so, with the help of Huge, because actually Huge produced that song for me, we were able to take it somewhere else and give it a new, fresh take to that song.
What if you had to describe or give me the evolution of your sound, what would you say it is?
Oh man. um uh well, I guess it's everything that's inspired me up into this point. I would say, if there's one thing people talk about when it comes to my playing, or they talk about the way that I interpret music or my musical voice, um, is I've always been told I have an incredible tone. I have a
Hmm.
really good sound. And I think your tone is clearly to the should be credited to the voices that you hear in your head, right? And so if growing up, the music that was around me was, you know Richard Elliott, Boney James, Grover Washington Jr., David Sanborn, Kirk Whalum, on and on and on. I mean, when it comes to my interpretation of how I would attempt to play the saxophone, those are the voices that are embedded in my brain, you know? So that's how I sound like that. It's just because that's how I hear music like that.
Hmm.
And then I would say, um, as far as who I look for the most inspiration, for a lot of years, I really resonated with the tonality of Steve Cole.
Hmm.
And I would say I'm probably the most inspired today of all saxophonists. Number one in my life would be Kirk Whalum.
Hmm.
I think, the way that he's able to interpret music, play music, I feel like he's connected to a higher power, being God. And I feel like his music comes directly from his soul and from a place that only somebody that is connected to that kind of, love and power could ever play like. And so he is just absolutely mind blowing to me, the different styles of music that he can play, the way that he interprets it. Um, yeah, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought because I'm
That's okay.
so thinking about Kirk, but yeah, he's, a huge go back to the question. Sorry.
And that's all right. But it is so funny you mentioned Kirk. I've had the opportunity to interview Kirk. Excuse me 1 second. I gotta
Yep.
get something.
Yep.
I don't know if you'll be able to see this.
Oh yeah. I see it.
So a long time ago, I was in radio, went to this record company that he was coming to, and he and I sat down and talked. And he's such a down to earth
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
It
One
is
of one
like
of the most humble people you could ever meet in your life.
exactly. And then I saw him in concert, and I understand what goes on. And then I realized he was sitting outside signing the Epic Cool CD. So I go outside. I'm walking back into the venue, and the
Uh-huh.
next thing you know, somebody grabs me. And I'm like, who is this? And it's him. He's
Mm-hmm.
like, what are you doing here? I go, seriously? You asked me that question and you're playing here. It was him and Jonathan Butler. And those two are like brothers. They're the spitting image of each other.
Yep.
And I go, can you help this woman that you're getting ready to sign this autograph for? He goes, dude, I just want to say thank you. It was a pleasure to talk to you, blah, blah, blah. And we've stayed in touch. He'll, holler at me every now and then just to go, hey, how you doing? What's going on? Do you need me to do anything? No, I don't need to do anything right now, Kirk. But yeah, and it's such a special tone. And I think the only one I don't have right now is Epic Cool, but that will become part of my collection soon.
Oh
But
man, that's a great album, man. That's a great album too.
there's so many, and this is the other question. There are so many saxophone players, and you've named 10 or 12 right now.
Yeah.
But there's another 110 or 12 out there that you haven't mentioned. Not saying that you haven't listened to them,
Yeah.
but that is the most popular, to me, that is the most popular instrument there is.
Yeah.
The question is, when you were back there listening to Grover and David and Kirk, why did you pick the saxophone? I mean, I'd want to pick something that nobody else is doing.
Yeah, I
Or
mean, I can't even answer that question other than I was just enamored by it. Like it was like calling me. I mean, I don't know. I have no idea. I mean, maybe subconsciously it was just because, that was the main vocal voice that
Mhm.
I heard growing up. Um it I didn't get to know her personality until after I fell in love with her looks. Let's just say that. But then as I got into it, the other thing is that, I've really always been into, pop music and R&B. So like I'm a huge fan of like, well, a lot of R&B artists, but to name a few, Whitney Houston, Mariah Carey, and I don't know, the saxophone, you can express yourself like a vocalist on the saxophone, and that's the way
Right.
that I play it as an interpretation. So I don't know, it just, yeah, it's the instrument that I fell in love with, but I can't give you more of an explanation than it just called
That,
my name.
that's fine. I mean, I think one of the things I try to do with this show is get people to listen to figure out if there's somebody out there aspiring to be a musician or who is a musician looking for guidance, looking for something that they can use
Yeah.
to further their career. This is why I asked these questions. Let's take a break. We're going to listen to one more song. Let's listen to the Max, which you played with Jeff Lorber. We'll talk
Yes,
about that
sir.
when we come back on the Jazz Flyte Podcast. That is To the Max by our guest today, Mo Lewis, with the help of one Jeff Lorber. How do you how do you cultivate these relationships to get Jeff Lorber, Huge Groove, whoever to play with you? Is this an ongoing thing, or is there ever an occasion? Here's the thing, because I'm a novice. So all of a sudden you're sitting at home, the phone rings, and it's Jeff Lorber, and Jeff goes, "Hey, Mo, I got an idea. I like what you do. Can you write a song? Or can we get together and write a song and you and I do it?"
Yeah.
Is that the kind of thing that happens, or are these
I
long-standing relationships?
Yeah, I wish. No, I'm a newer artist in the industry, right? And so, as much as I wish I could tell you that I, have this long, illustrious resume, that people of such caliber would want to, write a song with me. Not to take away anything that I've been able to accomplish, because I'm very proud of what I've been able to do in such a short time. But it's truly my team. I was very, very blessed because when I started in the industry, I started at with the top people, huge groove, right? I mean,
Hmm.
doesn't get any more,
Right.
doesn't get any more successful and than that, in my opinion. And his right hand man for a lot of stuff that he does, even though he produces his own stuff, is Jeff Carruthers.
Hmm.
So Jeff Carruthers is a very famous producer that has, worked with countless R&B artists in the 90s, but also um, every smooth jazz guy from, Dave Koz, multiple number ones with Richard Elliott, Paul Brown, the list goes on and on and on and on and on. And so Huge referred me to Jeff. And basically, it's through Jeff's connections and long-standing relationships with these industry guys. And what I will tell you is that the smooth jazz industry is, in general, the musicians, for the most part, are very incredible humanitarians, and they're wonderful to one another. And so if they hear, I mean, they're just music fans like I am, and if they hear something they vibe with, the way the Jeff Lorber thing went down, and I wish there was a cooler story to go with it, but it was simple as I was writing a song with Jeff Carruthers, Jeffrey Carruthers, my producer, and Jeff was working on another project with Jeff Lorber at the time, and goes, "Hey, I have this track. I want you to listen to it and see what you think about it." And then all of a sudden, maybe you'd be interested in, putting down some parts and a solo, be a featured artist on it. And we get the parts back, and I wasn't even asked about it. Jeff just goes, "Hey Mo, check this out. I got Jeff to throw down on this song." So, it wasn't about, Jeff Lorber coming to Mo Lewis and, "Hey, you just had a number one on Billboard. I want to get," I wish it went down like that, but, not to say that it won't in the future, God
Hmm.
willing, but that's how that kind of came down. And I've been really fortunate to work with amazing teams. And even though my teams are incredible with the best studio guys in the business, I still only work with a small portion of them. But I mean, working with producers like Jeffrey Carruthers and Greg Manning, which happened to produce Epic Cool by,
Yes.
I mean,
Kirk Whalum.
before he produced that, I worked with him like directly before that. These people are humble, incredible human beings. And some of these, incredible artists and producers and musicians are just some of the kindest people you ever meet. And so man, I love the industry, and I think if we all, approach it with humility and humbleness, and listen, us musicians, we all have egos, and they're all very fragile, and we also have a lot of insecurities. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Most of us know what we're capable of doing and what we're not capable of doing. I play smooth jazz, but I'm an R&B sax player. That's what I
Right.
play. I
Right.
approach playing the saxophone like a vocalist would approach singing a song. Okay,
Hmm.
I'm not a jazz player. Jazz players, when they play music, they think in patterns and they think of all these intricate things that are, in shapes and patterns. And not that I don't consider those things and practice patterns and play in shapes, but I'm singing with my instrument. That's how I approach it. So it's all about what I hear. Bottom line, we have to, in humility, understand what our strong points are
Learn whatever.
and embrace those and
Right.
just approach all these other musicians with humility and kindness, and the world kind of helps each other out in that regard, and that's how I got to work with those amazing artists.
Here's this goal I have, which will never be attained because I can't get all the jazz musicians that, first of all, that I know or that I know of in one spot. For example, if I could get you all to sit at the Hollywood Bowl and just tell stories
Yeah,
and to hear how you got started, to hear this, to hear that, I think the conversations would be great, but it's also how everything kind of intertwines. How I don't know how you got to this point, why you chose Georgie Porgy, why you chose this one, how you got to meet Huge Groove. And I think putting you all at number one, I think it would be pretty impressive if I could get 100 of you in one
yeah,
room. Um, but I just think the stories that would be so much to learn, so much to find out. Because the thing I like doing with this thing is finding out things. I don't know if you know her. Her name is Althea Renee. She's a
oh
flutist.
yeah, hmm
I didn't,
incredible.
yes, I didn't realize that she's a former Detroit deputy sheriff.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
Yes. So I'm like, so do I need to wear a bulletproof vest when I come to the
Yeah.
show? She, there's silence, and then she goes, "No, Daryl, you don't have to worry about that." She goes, "I'll protect you." And I go, "Cool, I'm coming." Um, but it's interesting stories like that that you hear, and interesting tidbits that you find out. What?
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead.
No, it's I mean, just hearing you explain that, and then even to be able to be, it trips me out for you even put me in the same sentence as these incredible artists, to be frank with you. And this is like a daydream for me that somehow came true. And it's not that I didn't put in the work behind it, because
Right.
but you know, like Althea, I have other careers in order
Hmm.
to, put food on the table.
Right.
But I've also had great commercial success. And to
Hmm.
be able to see my name on charts next to people like Kirk Whalum and Steve Cole and Rick Braun and Boney James, and to even be able to be anywhere, even in someone's fantasy about being on the same stage and chopping it up with them and just talk, it's absolutely a dream come true. And the cool part about it is that the one last thing I'd like to say, just how flabbergasted I am and blessed I am, um, is that this was my childhood dream.
Hmm.
And so the reason why I do music is not necessarily to pay the bills, but it's for legacy, something to leave my kids, my
Right. Yes.
grandkids, that
Yes.
will be everlasting. And although I didn't follow my career path to become, an artist for a living as as only an artist, I guess I wasn't able to become Kenny G or even
Mm.
Grover Watt. And
Not yet. Not yet.
yeah, the music industry has changed dramatically, and so the way to get there is a lot different than the way it used to
Yes.
be.
Yes.
But the fact that I was able to do what I've been able to do at this point and be on charts next to these guys, it's such a blessing. And I just want to say that it's such a humbling thing, and I can't even explain just how grateful I am to even be mentioned in a same thought as those guys.
This is so cool. This is so cool. This is why I do this show. Couple of more questions and then we're done.
Yeah,
So, what currently are you working on that we can look forward to?
yeah. So I'm going through a couple personal life changes right now. Sometimes life throws you some curveballs,
Yes.
and up into this point, with some of the commercial success that I've had, I really haven't fully put everything into my career to which
Hmm.
basically goes to say I should be playing out more, and I
Right.
haven't done that as much. I am sitting on a couple more finished tracks that I'm waiting to release, so I should be releasing two more tracks this year. And my goal for myself this year is to really put myself out there and start playing more gigs and start getting out there more because
Hmm.
I have well, I have a couple children, two of them which are grown. Believe it or not, I have a 24-year-old and an 18-year-old, and then I have an 11-year-old. But I'm getting to a time in my life where I can spend a little bit more time on myself.
Right.
My business being the saxophone business and the other entrepreneurial ventures that I'm in, they kind of run themselves, and I can run them from anywhere in the world. So it would
Hmm.
allow me to be able to play more. And when you go out there and travel and play, like um, it's not necessarily for the money, but it's more so for the exposure because
Right.
you have to
Right.
network to
Hmm.
get on bigger stages
Yes.
and create more fan base and create more demand for yourself. And the other thing is that in this day and age, the music industry has a lot to do with social media.
Yes.
30 years ago, there wasn't TikTok and Facebook and
Yes.
Instagram.
Yes.
And I think though there's really no major, the smooth jazz market is a small niche market. I think
Right.
there's plenty of opportunity to make plenty of money. Anybody can
Hmm.
with a lot less money invested than these major studios would, invest going to major studios and recording. So you can get high quality stuff from your home. I mean, I'm sitting in my home studio right now, and I feel like the opportunities for any new artist in any genre are endless. So, I'm grateful for those opportunities, and I would like to put in the time and the effort that it takes to get more of that exposure. So be more intentional. Right now, a lot of my intention is like on my sax business and my music business, but I would like to really kind of branch off that and go more into me as an artist business, self marketing and promotion. So that's the
Excellent.
goal for this year.
Okay. Lastly, how can our fans follow you? Are you on social
Yes,
media?
I
What is
am.
your social media presence?
So yeah, my Instagram would be Mo Lewis Jazz, all one word. So MOLOUIS Jazz on Instagram, and then on Facebook it would be Mo Lewis, just MOLOUIS, and
Hmm.
it's my artist page, and that's where I'm at right now. And then I also have a website. It's molewis.com.
Okay. Please keep us in mind when you release new music. We'll put it on our social
Absolutely.
media so all of our fans can see it. Mo, it's been a pleasure. Man,
Yeah,
this
just
is
and when I start promoting it, just inbox me, and I'll be happy to
yep,
send you a copy as soon as
cool.
it's available.
This is I no, we'll save that for once the microphone is off because Portia will get mad at me. Man, it's been a pleasure. It's been great to meet you. It's been great. I will follow your music. A comment about Georgie Porgy, my second favorite Toto song of all time. Of all
Oh
time.
yeah,
So I saw
thank
that
you,
and I'm
man.
like, I gotta listen to this. Um,
Give it a listen. I'm really proud of that. It's still one of my favorite. It was my very first recorded song ever, and it's still one of my favorite recordings ever that I've been able to do. And
mhm.
I just want to tell you, you know, us artists, couldn't be where we're at and do what we're doing without the passion of people like you. So I just want to thank you for the opportunity to
Not
even
a problem,
consider me
sir.
to have me on your
Yeah,
show. I'm so grateful for your support, and I hope to get
dude.
to know more about you and follow your show in the
Fine.
future.
I will. I always say you'll get sick of me because I send out little things here and there. I got a couple of things going on that you probably, hopefully, will be involved in. So I'm in Cleveland.
Okay.
We used to have a smooth jazz radio station here in town run by my good buddy Mark Ribbons. I always have to give him credit, but I would tell you that Mark is second because I was the first one to do it. And then I got out of it and Mark took over and ran the radio station. Um, but it's to bring back what we had here in the 70s and 80s. I did a jazz radio show on Sunday nights from 7 to midnight, and it was number one. We were huge. We covered the Tri-County area. We had study groups at Akron University, Cleveland State University, and Kent State University, and not 20 people, but like hundreds of people. So it's good. So I'm trying to bring that back. I've retired. I needed something to do. The wife is like, get out the house. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm doing now. But seriously, man, whatever you do, whatever you got, send it to me. You have all my contact information.
Perfect.
I'd appreciate it. I'd also appreciate this. Self-serving. Um, one of the problems I have with this show is getting guests. Eh, it's tough. Some of the people that you have mentioned, Huge Groove, Jeff Lorber, I've tried for months. and I can't even get a response. And any help you can provide anybody that you know, you did this
Sure.
thing with Eric Knight. I've tried to reach out to Eric Knight. Enough about that. But
All
if
right.
whatever you can do, I greatly appreciate it. I thank you very much for doing this. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to the Jazz Flyte Podcast. He is Mo Lewis. Check him out. Um,
Thank you.
you can always subscribe. You can find us. You'll find other things with Mo Lewis coming out. Once again, you've been listening to the Jazz Flyte Podcast. We will talk to you next week. Thank you for tuning in to the Jazz Flyte Podcast. I hope you enjoy these stories and soulful melodies that groove through the doors of time. If you want to stay connected with the latest updates and episodes, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell. Until next time, I'm Darrell Scott.